Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a new adaptation of a popular children's set of books that focuses on different scary stories. Now, I never read any of these books. I think there's 3 of them. I always saw them at my school library when I was younger, but I always focused on reading the Goosebumps book rather than the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I went to Target the other day and I saw them on display, so I went through and read a couple. Some are really short, some are a couple pages long, but this movie is taking some of the most popular ones from those books and transferring it into a movie and telling a narrative based around those stories. I was looking forward to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark because I've heard a lot about it when I was younger, and I was curious to see how they would transfer some of the popular stories into the movie. And this is about a group of friends on a Halloween that go to a haunted house. There is a myth that a young girl named Sarah Bellows lived in a room in the basement because her family thought she was different. There, supposedly she hung herself, and there is a book of scary stories that Sarah Bellows has written. One of the teenagers takes the book home and the stories start to write themselves and have her and her friends in the story. For me, I thought this movie was okay. It was enjoyable. What I really did like about this movie is the atmosphere it created. I love movies that take place on a holiday. For example, Halloween or Trick or Treat, they take place on actual Halloween. So I love watching movies that take place on holidays like Halloween or Christmas, because it really gets me in the mood for the holidays. And this movie started off on October 31st. They were trick-or-treating, pulling pranks on people. And so I was like, I can't wait for Halloween. I thought this movie would have been perfect if it came out in October. Been around the right time to see the movie. But I enjoyed the movie because of the atmosphere it created. I felt like this would be a movie that I would watch in October around Halloween to get me excited for the holiday. But besides that fact, that's just a personal reason why I like this movie. It's an okay movie. Some of the jump scares are repetitive and you see them coming. When they introduce a new creature or a new story, it gets really silent, and then there's a loud jump scare, and it doesn't really feel earned. And so a lot of the jump scares in the movie do feel repetitive. You see them coming, you know what is going to happen. And some of the stories in here are interesting. Some are really short. Some really don't have a lot of time to feel developed. And some are interesting where I want to see a little more of them. We have one with Harold the Scarecrow. We also have one where a girl has spiders in her face. You see that in the trailers. There is one with the Jangly Man. There's one with this creature walking down a red room. And I think all the designs for the creatures, monsters, whatever they are really well done. Some of them are really kind of disturbing and some are just kind of silly. But my main issue with some of these creatures, these stories, is that they are based on fears of these teenagers. So each one has a different fear, and each one maybe heard a myth when they were younger by their parents, and so that story that is being written in this book is playing out their fear and that myth. So for example, this teenager is scared of a scarecrow every time he delivers eggs to his neighbor, and the story uses that fear against him. I never really felt like these kids who were scared of whatever was happening to them. I think if the movie maybe got rid of 1 or 2 of them and tightened up that fear and that story against that teenager, I would have felt that effect. I would have felt that monster terrorizing that teenager a little more. And having so many different stories and so many teenagers, it takes away from the overall story of Sarah Bellows and the teenagers trying to figure out what happened to her and stopping the book from writing them into the stories. So I wanted to know a little more about Sarah Bellows, and once we got to the end and we learned a little more about her, the movie was almost over, and so the pacing is really slow for Sarah's story and doesn't give it the time it needs to develop into its main story because we're so focused on side stories. And I know that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is based on many different stories, but I think if they got rid of 1 or 2 and focused on the individuals and then Sarah Bellows a little more, it would have made the story a little more interesting, because I thought Sarah Bellows was a very interesting character and some of the other monsters were interesting as well, but Sarah Bellows' character didn't get that much development, and when at the end you were supposed to kind of feel something towards the character and understand her story a little more. And I just didn't, because it didn't get that time to develop. I like the idea of how they handled the story, but I wish they would have tightened up some of the stories in the movie and then leading to the end with Cerebellus, because it did feel very anticlimactic. I wanted to see a little more, I wanted to feel a little more developed, but it just wasn't. Also, this movie is not very scary. I know it's PG-13, it can't be overly violent. It does unfortunately rely on those jump scares. Some of it's friends popping out behind you, but you see it coming, you know what's gonna happen. The trailer shows a lot of the jump scares, unfortunately. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was a decent film. It is a movie that I will probably watch again, just because it definitely has a Halloween holiday vibe, which I did enjoy. But other than that, I found the story to be okay. It's not very scary, but it would be worth another watch. I'm gonna go ahead and give Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark a B. Have you guys seen Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark? What did you think about it? What is your favorite story from those novels? And have you seen the movie, and what did you think about it? My name is JustinWatchesMovies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.